Namaste everyone, welcome to Hindu Insider series. Once again, this series is brought to you by Hindu Youth Network under the auspices of Hindu Endowment Board. And this evening's program, we are going to look at serving the divine through seva. Last week, we spoke about seeking divine through performing arts, and we had four guests. This evening, we have two special guests with us to share with us their volunteer experiences as well as perspectives on seva as per scriptures as well as through other Puranic literature. So, and today joining us, we have Mr. Hariom and we have Ms Susila. Mr. Hariom is from the Chinmaya Seva Centre and Ms Susila Ganesan is part of the Hindu Endowment Board committee as well as she has been also running her own Seva group. So thank you so much to the both of you for accepting our kind invitation and joining us in this evening's program. Hope you are well. How's things with you, Ms Susila?
All is well, by the grace of God, Karthik. Glad to meet you, Hariom.
Hariom, how's things with you?
All going well. Just working online as usual, but everything is fine. Thank you. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So, maybe let's start off with Ms. Susila. I mean, how long have you been doing Seva?
Okay, I think I have been involved in Seva from my secondary school days, if not earlier, because Dad used to do it and I used to just follow Dad. So that's how Seva started for me. Grew up doing Seva.
Wow. Okay, that's like 2 digit, I believe.
Yes. It's been a journey that started beautifully since young, and I'm still treading along with guidance from the divine.
That's awesome. And so, why did you then start off a Seva group?
Okay. See, initially when I started doing Seva, it was just amongst family, and then it became with friends. So the group got bigger. Then we realized that, hey, we need to have some sort of defined group, although we're not a separate registered society. Fortunately, because I'm with the Hindu Endowment Board, one thing led to another, and then the board decided, let's crystallize it and form a community seva committee. So that was started in July last year. But prior to that, there was already ongoing work by the community seva group without registration as such.
Right. Nice. Mr. Hariom, how about yourself? How long have you been with Chinmaya Seva Centre? And yeah.
I have been with the Chinmaya Seva Centre now for quite a long time. This was around the time when I came to Singapore to do my undergraduate studies. It's almost been 12 years now. And I've been here working with them since. Originally, I was a part of the youth group as a receiver and as a student of the youth activities. And my formative years have actually been spent receiving more than actually serving. As time has gone by, I have myself come into the position of contributing and participating back to the community. So we have taken up various Seva projects, either through the mission or through independently, and various such initiatives have been taken up. So maybe over the span of the last 7 to 8 years is when I would say I've really been involved in serving back to the community. Before that, mostly I was receiving, as a child or as a youngster, we receive much more than we give. But as we go into the next phase of our life, we start giving more. So that's roughly how my journey has been. A good amount of those activities started off from the Chinmaya mission, and because that was a place where we received knowledge, and then it spilled over into my own life through various other measures as well. So yeah, that's how I would describe it.
Right. So what does Seva means, Ms. Susila?
Okay.
To you
Seva
or yeah.
actually means to do selfless service to one and all, not necessarily just mankind. It applies to all life forms. That is Seva. And the key word there is it must be selfless. Otherwise, it's not Seva.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Hariom?
I think this is very beautifully, put by Susila ji. So the way I think about it is, if I were to sort of coin it as a phrase, any activity or action that is taken up at the center of which is not my selfish motive, then that will be seva. So if we do so many activities in our day-to-day life, for example, we go to work and we try to earn some money, or we go and do certain kind of events so that we can, raise our own popularity or our fame and so on and so forth. We post on social media so that we actually get social credit from other people. A lot of these activities are self-centered. They're not wrong actions. They're just self-centered actions. And that's completely fine. We have a lot of things to do for our own taking care of needs and so on and so forth. We need to do those things. But those actions at which the center is not my selfish motive, that would become seva. Just very nicely, as Susila ji has put, that naturally means it has to be selfless. And that then becomes seva. So this is the way I think as well, very much aligned with Susila ji.
And would you like to add on, Susila?
Okay. Actually, with seva, I must say that whilst I started from young, I have embraced the teachings of my guru, who is Saint Ramalinga Swami of Badalur, very affectionately known as Vallalar, the philanthropist. Mm-hmm. So a lot of his teachings relate to doing seva or jiva karunya, which means karunya means kindness, compassion, and his teaching is that if you want to reach God, it is only through compassion to all life forms, regardless of race, language, religion. So that is what that I try my level best to follow, and that's what I have learned as the concept of seva.
So in other words, is it safe to assume that one who wants to seek divine have to engage in seva?
It is one of the many pathways that is available. You know that our Hindu Sanatana Dharmam talks about many ways of reaching God. One thing that strikes me that I remember is from the Bhagavad Gita, right? In the Gita, Krishna Paramatma says that if you do selfless seva, it is one of the ways to upgrade yourself in your journey of spirituality. It transforms and helps you in your personality to become a better person. So even our scriptures, many of our scriptures always talk about seva in one form or another.
Right. But how does one then see this as a goal? I mean, in life, we have so many things going on. Our daily transactions are already more than enough to take a toll on us, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And then here we are, you shared with us that, seva is a way to also transform ourselves, but it's so challenging, right? Sometimes in our materialistic pursuits, there's no time for us to even look at ourselves, our inner self. So how can then one break, or how can one broaden their perspective to see that this is also part of their life? How to see that?
Okay. Okay. The way I see it is like this. See, for every Hindu, the ultimate goal is moksha. How do you attain that moksha? There are so many ways, right? So for me, I told myself that it has to be seva. That's why I have embraced this guru. And in a country, especially like Singapore, where everything is so fast-paced, even though we had the circuit breaker seeing us all sitting at home, we were most of the time in front of our laptops trying to see how much work we can do still, right? So that's the lifestyle we have here. But at the end of the day, all these, if you look at it and if you see how it's described in Gita and other scriptures, all this is Maya. It will be here for a minute, it will be gone. In this life, you are doing this right now. Like I'm here live talking to you on this program with Hariom ji. This is also in God's calendar, but this is not the real thing. This is Maya. The real thing is your journey to attain moksha. So you need to keep falling back on this one punchline. What's my objective? What's my objective as a Hindu? So you may have all these peripheral issues that will take you off tangent. I need to, I have got KPIs to meet. I have got staff issues to deal with. I've got overheads to meet. But all these are issues that are trying to cloud the otherwise clear waters. So this is the line that you need to fall back on all the time.
So moksha here means liberation from sufferings, correct?
Yes.
So, but not everyone can attain moksha in this lifetime. As
Definitely not.
such, then
Or
how
they may
do
not want to. They may
yes,
not want to either.
yeah, they may not want to because I recall that in Purusharthas there are four goals, correct? There's dharma, there's karma, there's moksha, and then there's artha, security. So I think a lot of us are caught in between karma, desires, as well as material
Artha.
needs or wealth. So to really choose that moksha, either one must be going through a lot of uncomfortable experiences to say that what, I really want this to end. But even if that happens, isn't that then also there's a selfish motive because you want to end your sufferings?
Moksha is not actually the end of suffering. I think moksha is oneness with bliss, which is the divine. So we are all here now because of our karmic baggage. Whether we like it or not, we play this certain role. I play a role as a wife, a mother, a sister, a colleague, a teammate in a seva group, all because of my past karma that I carry. So there is no running away from this. The end of the karmic baggage, when the karmic baggage is nil, that's when we reach the ultimate goal, which is the divine, which of course I am very sure I need many more births to get there, but there's a start somewhere and here I am.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Hariom, you have been also in an organization, and you earlier you shared that you guys conduct a lot of activities. So, what type of seva activities do you conduct?
So, what the kind of seva that we take up, and very nicely, the center is called Seva Center because the goal is to bring the knowledge of Hinduism and share what is the philosophical understanding of Hinduism. So that is something very centrally pursued by the Chinmaya Mission. So because it is a Jnana Marga that is taken up, so there is a lot of thrust on understanding what is the reason, what is the logic behind things that we do in Hinduism. And that's what we do. So a part of those things are very much sharing and bringing that knowledge to people. So a good amount of those activities are in the form of discussions, knowledge sessions, and so on and so forth. But we also take up various other projects. So in Singapore, very recently, we have taken up something called the Gyandan project, which we have actually worked very closely with the Hindu Endowment Board. What we do is we actually have raised money, and that money then we use to distribute books about the knowledge of Hinduism to people for free. So that people can get access to that knowledge and read it. So it is not for any money raising kind of initiative, but just to spread knowledge. That is one of the activities. But apart from that, we also have various other initiatives that are conducted in India and throughout the world by the various other wings of Chinmaya Mission. For example, the Rural Development Wing, so on and so forth. I mean, we only participate in some of those activities either by time contribution a little bit or financial contribution. But some of those activities are to help people in the downtrodden communities in India, or, for example, to run the schools, to run orphanages, to run universities, and so on and so forth, which can then reach to every last member of the community. Because not all institutions can support that. So you need to have extra support through non-profit organizations, and those are some other service activities that are also taken up. And apart from that, Chinmaya Mission plays a role in spreading knowledge across the entire world. So that is there irrespective, but particularly poor communities, they have also dispensaries and various such projects. On a personal level, to me, and I think we were discussing very nicely about what seva is, right? To me, I think of seva as an opportunity to give back, and an opportunity where I have my skills or my fine-tuned potential is there in certain aspects of my life. I, of course, make money with that. I have my day-to-day earning or my livelihood through that process. But that same skill, which I have refined, can also be used to reach out to people who cannot get that very easily. So, because I've been thinking about seva that way, in the recent times, I've also participated in various educational initiatives. So I'm actually a researcher by profession, but I extremely love teaching as well. So we have taken up various teaching programs at non-profit levels, and we conduct that in India and various communities where students cannot access. So those are some other kind of service projects that I also take.
Right. So Sheila, what type of seva activities do you conduct as a group?
Okay. Like what Hariom ji said, okay, if I took from my profession, I'm a lawyer in private practice for about 27 years now. So from the day I got called to practice, I started a legal clinic for those who cannot afford legal representation. So to date, it's been 27 years of doing that. Tuesdays.
Wow.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Most rewarding because sometimes when you walk in that particular constituency where I do it, I get people greeting me and said, hey, you told me this, I did it. And I'm like, wow, thank you, God, for appreciating that. And we are starting this, we have in the pipeline, legal counseling to be done in our temples as well, but it's not crystallized yet because a lot of work was stalled because of the current COVID restrictions. So that's in the pipeline. We want to do that for the public as well. And apart from that, we have a whole variety of things that we do. Our target group of recipients is the migrant workers, I can say largely. We do annadanam or food serving every second Sunday of the month at the Serangoon Road Veeramakaliamman Temple, because that's where they all come. And usually from Monday to Saturday, when they work overtime on a Saturday, they are left with the food that their employers give them, which is basically food that the employer does across the board to everybody. So when you leave your country, from India, you come over, you will long for your type of food. It's comfort, So we make sure that we have a lovely tie-up with Sri Veeramakaliamman Temple, and we do the seva with them every second Sunday of the month. And where there's an opportunity in the temple where it may be Tamil New Year, it may be Deepavali, English New Year, any festival that the temple has that will attract many of these our foreign worker friends, we will step in to do the Annadana Seva. And once a year, we will have a Gala Deepavali Annadanam, where our concept is we would invite them like as if it's an open house. Initially, it started just as a family thing. We thought, okay, why do we not, have open house for everybody? My apartment is so small, so let's take premises, let's just rent premises and hire premises and do it. So that's how we started. When the temple found out about it, they said, hey, let's partner and do this together. So it's beautiful, when you start seva with sincerity, it's amazing how, call it the law of attraction, call it whatever you would like, but the divine intervention that happens, right, to make it a success it's mind-blowing. You need to experience it to understand it. So that's the migrant workers bit. And then we also go to various homes in Singapore. It may be those who have special needs. It may be for our elderly care homes, maybe the hospice. We have a number of homes that we go to. Now, of course, because of the current situation, that's also at a standstill, but we go there on a third week of the month, Saturday usually. We gather all our friends and family, and we try to have youth in them. And then we go and befriend them, have programs with them, we sing with them. Basically, we spend time with them, because we are very fortunate to be in a country where the state actually looks after the fundamental needs of all these people. What we need to do is to give them a little bit more. We need to show the love. Some of them, you will find that no one visits them, So when you go, you hold their hand. I don't speak any other language apart from Tamil and English, and a very little bit of Malay. But I have sat with people who speak to me in Hokkien, in Mandarin and all. And we just sit there, I speak in English, one or two words in Malay, and the conversation goes on. It's just amazing. People just want to be given some love. So that's third thing that we do. And when we bring in youth to do this with us, initially they are very apprehensive. But subsequently, right, when they go and they see the chemistry that happens, you don't need to speak the same language to show love. You really don't. Animal lovers will
Very
know
good.
this as well.
Yeah, true, true.
Love is devoid of language, race, religion. And then when you come back the next time, you would really think that, hey, this person won't recognize me. But you'll be surprised, the resident will hold your hand and say, hey, hello, and then that makes your day. So that's another activity that we do. And once a year, we organize a 3-day meditation program on St. John's Island. This has been happening for the past 5 years. And then we have meditation, yoga, and Sattvic food, introduction to Sattvic food, satsangs and all. Again, our target group is the migrant workers. We get sponsorship amongst friends and relatives and well-wishers to just let them come there for the 3 days. We usually choose a long weekend so that they don't have to deprive themselves of a day's salary. And then they come there for the 3 days. Even if not anything, at least they've had 3 days of rest and have been looked after. So that's the sort of thing we do. And apart from that, on an ad hoc basis in our group, if we come across, we have friends who are undertakers as well. So if they let us know that, somebody has passed on, but the family is stranded, then we'll immediately step in and do what we can and handhold the family until we do the relevant paperwork to get in touch with our community services to support the family.
Amazing work that you're doing. Yeah, it's like such a wide spectrum of activities that both of you are doing, and it's very, very amazing. At this point in time, I'd like to take one question from our audience. Mr. Shiva Rai has asked, maybe the speakers can share how Seva has changed your lives personally. Maybe that, Hariom, we can begin addressing this question. How has
Hi,
Seva...
Shiva.
Yeah.
Hi, Shiva. Thank you for the question. Shiva has been a very active member of our Singapore community as well, and he has very strongly participated. Very beautiful question he has asked. So, for me personally, I think Seva became very empowering, and I found this out in a very funny way when I was actually studying in my younger days. So I was a part of Chinmaya International Residential School, and that's how I became familiar with the Chinmaya mission. And I had a very fantastic time in my boarding school experience. It turned out that, everybody in school has various different skills. Mine was of academic inclinations. Other friends of mine had sports inclinations, and everybody had different kinds of inclinations. And we had a very nice bunch of friends. And during the exam time, sometimes they were like, Hariom, can you just help us with something, And then I used to be able to understand and perform well in academics. So usually people used to come to me. And at that time, I realized that when I used to take out time to share about my understanding of the subject, I actually learned much more about it in the process. And it was transformative to me in such unique ways because I ended up becoming much more proficient at what I was earlier doing. When I had kept it only to myself, I could have gained it to a certain extent. But when I shared it with other people, it helped me to build my confidence, to gain more knowledge, to become more self-reliant, and to give back more. And so I had a very simple version of that when I was in, my schooling days. But then the same thing exactly applies today. When I go and take up these projects, or I go and we go and serve the community. Very beautifully, Susila ji mentioned how the people can see the love, right? In the same way, when we are taking some of these initiatives and the deeper insights of education or some vision of understanding is gained by the members, you actually feel very deeply satisfied in your own activity and your own initiatives. And coming back to the overall point that Susila ji mentioned at the beginning, right? We're all going towards a bigger goal in Hinduism. That is to enlarge a sense of self, to reduce our egocentric desires, and go towards a place where we become more than what we are. And I think Seva actually helps us to do that. So you can see that your own self-transformation does happen in the way you're actually going towards the higher perspective of Hinduism. So that's the way I would say my life has been changed by Seva.
Thank you so much. How about yourself, Susila? How has it transformed your life?
Okay, I have to relate it back to my profession because the occupational hazard in my profession is that being a litigator, I don't write love letters to counsel on the other side. More often than not, it's firm. But over the years, when I do Seva, I start thinking about what is the real objective. You know, when I said you fall back to the real objective. So when I relate it back to my work, what is the objective of my work is to put my client in a position that he would have been, but for things that went wrong for him in a contractual matter or whatever. So when I put that back, I learned to put his interest first. And then it has helped me in trying to diffuse an otherwise acrimonious situation. It has taught me how to look at things in perspective with also whilst also being mindful about how the other party is affected. So over the years, I have mellowed down, of course, without compromising clients' needs, to make people understand that there is a win-win situation, that there is a way to resolve matters without being acrimonious. To the best, try it out, and see how you can compromise, how you can give in a little bit to come up with a solution that both of you will be happy with and you can live with for the rest of your life. You can win a battle, right? But can you sleep peacefully after having won that battle? However, if you compromise a bit, yeah, you may actually give in some of the things that you wanted. You may give up some of the things. You may have lesser than what you actually wanted to have, but you will sleep peacefully. So the more seva I do, I learn empathy. I learn how to step into someone else's shoes to feel and to understand and to see things from their perspective. Seeing things from your own perspective is something that we do unconsciously, but very often it is selfish.
Right.
It's very easy to say something like, "You don't even understand this. Can't you even understand this?" This is a term that sometimes we use very carelessly. But if you were to step into another person's shoes, then you will understand from his eyes how do things appear. So when you do a lot of seva, right? Like for example, let's just say a visit to a home. I'll at the beginning, I used to come back feeling very down, very depressed. Oh, is this what life is? Why do people have children and then they end up in old folks' home? But that's a very judgmental thing to say. You see, because I was at the beginning stage. But when I went there more often and then I started seeing the children, I learned how to understand that they at that point did what was best for their parent from a child's perspective. So Seva has taught me how not to judge. It's a very important concept in Seva, never judge. This is something that I'm still learning because sometimes very quick to come to a decision when you see something, but never, I'm beginning to force myself to do is never judge anything from the way you see it, because that's not the real thing. There's always another side to the story. So this is what these years of Seva has been teaching me.
I think you've put across a very, very pertinent point, especially in this day and age where everyone is, social media is so accessible. They just enter and express their opinions. They're so
Yes.
opinionated.
Correct.
In the name of being expressing their opinions freely, they tend to be very judgmental. They tend to criticize others without even understanding the actual intent. Sometimes it's even taken out of context. I don't want to mention any recent activities, but there have been increasingly such reports that we read as well. And what you have mentioned is a very important point. So it's important to expose yourself. And I think one value that they should be that one has gained, and or rather you have gained that you shared with us, is perspective taking. I think that is something that we tend not to, because like what Hariom said, we tend to be very egocentric sometimes, right? This is me, this is what I think, this is how it should be. But
Yes.
when you do such things, when you're exposed to different stories, life stories, you'll be like, oh, life can be also led in this way. There are also people who go through such things, and it then like what mentioned, it develops an empathy. I think it's a very important point that you have brought across. Are there any such Quranic stories that also highlight the significance of seva that you can share with us? Anybody?
Susila, why don't you go ahead?
I'm not, I can't tell you anything offhand.
Sure, then that's all right. But maybe a story, a real story, a person whom have been having certain form of difficulties, but after doing seva, the transformation that you have witnessed, not just in yourself but in that person. Maybe you can share such stories, inspirational stories as well.
Well, I have seen people who have joined us in Seva. Sometimes they're very aloof, but they want to come and do Seva. Then we wonder, why are they so quiet? You come to do Seva, but you don't want again, I must confess, I have also thought at the beginning, like, okay, this person comes to do Seva, but why is this person not so willing to drown in Seva? Then I realized that they have certain inhibitions. They've had certain things that have happened in their life that may have affected their psychological well-being in a certain way. So that is why they have like a certain barrier. But when they come and do seva, eventually we've seen them transformed into happier persons who then open up and tell us, okay, this happened, that's why I was like this. And then we have seen, like that. So sometimes when we also go to these homes, because we go regularly, sometimes we know the people who manage the homes quite well. So they will give us some, without, of course, divulging too much in contravention of the PDPA and things like that. They will give us some guidelines and say, okay, this patient, you must be careful. Don't mention this particular phrase. They get worked up, things like that. Then when we find out why, we understand better. And then we have seen when you go to a particular home, they need to know you well enough to sort of open up. Then you find that some people who actually have been told to us to be careful about, because they are not very open to seeing strangers, eventually after like a few months, they actually start smiling, talking to you, and that's very heartwarming.
Right.
Yeah.
Hariom, in your perspective, I mean, speaking about the type of changes that you have experienced, and you guys, the both of you have led a lot of volunteer groups, and you date on a weekly basis. I believe you meet and interact with volunteers. There's something called the right attitude, right aptitude, right? To do a seva or to do any action, you always need to cultivate a certain attitude and aptitude. I think the both of you at various instances earlier did mention about it, but maybe it would be very useful to consolidate the points right now in terms of attitude and aptitude that one needs to develop. Need not have already, it doesn't need to be a prerequisite, but something that they need to develop as they engage in seva.
I think this is a very beautiful point. At the preliminary level, when we start doing seva, there is an attitude that I am a giver and somebody else is a receiver, and therefore there is some kind of very silent, egoistic hierarchy that manifests in our head. We may not even think about it consciously, but somehow it is just there. When we donate, it's like my hand is above, somebody else's hand is below. We tend to have that thinking. And maybe this is very much the journey of the seeker, when they start off. But I think this is only a starting point, and we have to be a little mindful to not have that sort of entrapment, because the idea of seva is that the person who is performing seva, we need to really go back to what is the vision here that Hinduism is trying to say, right? So in chapter 3, there is a very beautiful discussion about something called the yajna spirit. And the yajna spirit is, we of course know yajna is the word where you have a fire and then you put, various things into the fire and then you act like that. And you do it once a year, and then maybe there are you ask for some boons and something like that. So we have a very ritualistic concept of yajna. But Krishna in Gita chapter 3 is saying that a yajna is an activity where various members of the community come and contribute something that they have their skills in. The person who is the Brahmin, he's going to do the chanting. The person who's a carpenter is going to build the pandal. The person who is wealthy is going to conduct as a yajman. The person is going to prepare food. So everybody comes together and does their activity, and everybody contributes to their part, and then their activity is performed. And as a consequence of that, the spiritual gain is shared by everybody in the community. So the act of service is very much like a yajna. And that is exactly the equivalence that Krishna is trying to establish in the 3rd chapter. So the reason why I'm going into this philosophical discussion is to establish the point that service should not be thought of as something that I am giving to somebody else, but it is an opportunity for me to be a part of and be a participant in. And very much we realize, so many beautiful activities Susila ji has mentioned, some of the things that I do myself, we are not individual owners of those activities of seva. There are so many people who have come involved. Somebody is giving the money, somebody is giving actually their time for help, and so on and so forth. And really, we are all coming and participating together. So I think rather than feeling that we are giving, we should feel that I am getting the opportunity to participate. And I think that's the attitude to have, and something to be very consciously cultivating every time, rather than slipping into our perspective of egocentric. Otherwise, the seva is not seva. It is again one more opportunity for your ego to grow. So we have to be very much alert about this when we are in the field. This is something that I would like to say.
Thank you
Okay,
so much.
Karthik, I would just, since Hariom ji put it very nicely, a story comes to my mind from the Mahabharata. Arjuna is going with Krishna Paramatma on the chariot, and Arjuna says, asks Krishna, who's the biggest philanthropist ever? And Krishna says, needless to say, it's Karna. And then Arjuna, of course, was expecting the answer to reflect his name. So he kept quiet, and then a few days passed. And one day again, when Krishna Paramatma and Arjuna travel together, Krishna Paramatma converts a whole hill into gold and says, here you are, Arjuna. This whole hill is gold. You can donate it away. So Arjuna is all excited. He says, get all the village people to come. And he stands there and he takes it with his hands and he gives, I'm giving the gold. Take this, all of you. I'm happy to give it to you. Take it. And he's so tired, right? At the end of the day, the hill of gold is not even a fraction done. So he looks at Krishna and said, I'm so tired of giving. I have given so much. And this mountain of gold is not reducing. So then Krishna says, okay, let's call Karna. And he calls Karna. And he tells Karna, this hill of gold or mountain of gold is for you. Then Karna looks at the village people and said, all this is for you. Take. And he walks away. This story is something that I have shared with my children, my friends. Every time I get opportunity, I share this. See, there's this story is so apt to take off from where Hariom ji left. My hand, I'm giving, I'm the giver. There's no such thing. So this is the attitude one must adopt in Seva. I'm not the one who's giving. God is using me as a tool. I don't need to know whom I'm giving it to. I don't need to hear a word of thanks. The divine has given me the opportunity to do this seva. I do it, I turn, I walk away. So every time I go through this story from the Mahabharata, it's a beautiful story. There are, of course, many, many stories from the Mahabharata that we can pick up from the Ramayana. But this one particular story will stay with me. I think when I have grandchildren or great-grandchildren, this will be the first story I tell them.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, these are also, once again, very valuable points that I think youths need to take into consideration. But sometimes what deters youths, and I think as a youth perspective, when I see it from a youth's perspective, it's definitely stories that you hear about a particular group, an organization, or naturally, past experiences where there could be internal politics, there could be, personality clashes and stuff like that. So there's such things, or maybe even the priorities could change, and they're so busy they have no time. So maybe for the first part, where you have the internal politics or whatsoever, and I think it definitely reflects the issues that you mentioned here. It comes from I'm the leader, I am this is my organization, do it that way. But as a participant, as a participant who wants to volunteer, there's a good cause. At the end of it, there's a good cause. But how can then that person tell himself, hey, you know what, I should still continue serving, but how I have to deal with it. you know, or what type of mindset one needs to develop? Maybe Mrs. Sheila can add on.
Okay, this mindset comes with maturity, and it's very important to have a mentor or a few mentors whom you trust, because definitely whether it's at your workplace, at home, or in especially in Seva, there may be many people who will give you adverse comments, who will doubt your ability to perform. Then you must have this. Any situation can happen, but how you react to the situation defines you as a person. At the end of the day, we are human beings. We will get affected by negative comments. But again, I always fall back on, for every situation, there's a punchline, there's a bottom line I fall on. It'll be like, okay, what's my objective? Why did I want to do this? Who is my guide in this? I answer to God. So I'll sit down and say, okay, if I could have a conversation with the divine now, what would the guidance from the divine be? Ignore the situation. Your goal is to do this. Go into it.
This
Sometimes
reminds me of, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to be firm, but you must maintain your cool, and your choice of words that you choose is very important, because when you do seva, the way I tune my mind to it, and when I have a group, I always do this 2-minute brief before the seva starts. See everyone as your guru. Your guru can be anybody. Okay, it can be Ramana Maharishi, it can be like Chinmaya Foundation, and then you can have every guru is an epitome of love from God. See that guru in everyone who comes. Even the person who tells you off, that person also has God in him. It is your ego if you react adversely to that person. That's how we do it. It takes a lot of practice.
Yes, definitely. I think you have very nicely unpacked karma yoga, but you have put it in a very easy and consumable fashion for our youths.
I was trying not to use difficult terms, deep terms.
Yeah. No, great effort there. Hariom, do you have anything to add on for that point?
I think this is a very beautiful question, because this really brings to heart the spirit of what happens in Seva. So when we think about and dissect our day-to-day life, if I am in a corporate environment or in day-to-day work, we see politics, we see ego clashes, we see all those kind of things there. And of course, as far as there are human beings, there are egocentric activities, and they are going to pursue those activities in that particular manner. Now, some of these human beings decide to come into various religious organizations and continue to play a role there, and they want to give back. Their attitude or the bhava or their intention is actually very pure, but they have not yet transformed into the supernatural being yet. They are the same human beings who were yesterday in the corporate lives, and now they're coming here. So it's very natural that the people that we interact with will bring their attitudes, will bring their ideas and their spirits to the seva. And this is not entirely problem, but this is everybody's spiritual journey. So I think we need to be very open and accepting that everybody will be coming from various different backgrounds, and we have to be accommodating of the fact that they are going to be there. Politics will be there in religious organizations. Suddenly people cannot evaporate their egocentric thinking the day they walk into organizations, right? So that is our spiritual journey. And at the end of that journey, when we become, realize, then maybe we'll be there not having any ego, but until then we are going to have. So it is even false to expect that can go away. So we need to be mindful of that. But I think one point that I want to stress from what Susila ji mentioned was, what am I doing here? What is my goal here? Why did I enter into this particular activity? I think being cognizant of that is extremely important. If I know that I'm here because my long-term journey is my own spiritual unfoldment, then we must understand that spiritual unfoldment means what? My ego is going to get bruised. The whole point of spiritual growth means that my egocentric thrust has to reduce. That will happen when people hurt me. It's like seva is a very nice opportunity where, the God is using sandpaper to rub your ego, and then only you'll become smooth.
Right.
So I think we should think of this as an opportunity of self-transformation and self-growth rather than as a negative quality, because that is really what is going to make us more larger human beings than what we were before we started the Seva project. I think this is a very important aspect of it, and we should not be bruised out and feel negative, but feel surcharged and come out of our ego more because of this.
So does age matter? I mean, the points that you shared here so far, I mean, as young adults, it would be easier for us to understand and assimilate and, of course, put it into practice, mainly because, we are in charge of our life. We have a bit more control over our daily activities and our time. But for youths who are probably still studying, who are still dependent on their parents, or they might be still under the strong tutelage of their parents, then how can they persuade their parents? Because sometimes parents may want to just tell them, focus on your studies, don't do all this. So does age matter? Is there a barrier to doing Seva? How can parents and children come together and have a conversation on this? And sorry, there are many questions. And how parents should be supportive?
Okay. When we do our services for migrant workers, especially for Deepavali, sometimes I'll have some participants tell me, I need to look after my grandchild. So I say, wow, wonderful opportunity. Please ask your grandchild to come along. And then we'll have something for that child to do. And the child will be so happy to do it. And when the child goes back home and tells the parent, right, then the parent will see the child having so much to say about a Seva without knowing that this is Seva. And then I realized that parents do send their children after that. And the parents will come along. So we have 3 generations sometimes: grandma, son and daughter, and then the grandchild. It's beautiful. Like when we do our Thaipusam Seva, we run a Thaipusam Tanir Pandal or water point for continuous 36 to 39 hours. We start on the eve of Thaipusam and we finish after the cleaners, after the last Kaveri. We serve the cleaners and then we leave.
Wow.
Yes, we do that as Seva. Because I think that's the essence of Seva. Everyone there has to be served. So, over a span of 36 hours, we don't have that much of manpower. And Thaipusam, every other Hindu is involved in Thaipusam. So to get volunteers is very difficult. So our volunteers are very stretched. But then that's when happens, I can't do for 8 hours, Amma. I'll get my son to take over. And then the son will say, I have to look after my son. I bring my son. So this is how it starts. So there's no age barrier. And if someone comes to me and tells me, I can't stand for long, I need to sit down, I will make sure I have a chair, I make them sit down and do what they can with their physical ability. Because Seva is not about your physical ability. Seva is how you feel from the heart that you want to give. That is Seva. It must come from inside.
Right. So age does not matter. I mean, to short. And I think parents and children should then consider doing activities together. And one way to remain committed is to make Seva part of our daily life. Would you agree?
It can be a family outing once a month. You'll be amazed at the bonding that develops in that one outing. Because you learn, you can teach a child about filial piety, about caring for your parents. But all that is book knowledge. You can read books, you can show them a documentary. But when you actually take them to a nursing home or to one of these homes and you do, the child sees you doing it, Parents should and must lead by example because you're the first teacher to your child. You don't have to put in words. Your actions will teach your child.
Yeah. I think we tend to forget that, and I think parents also, they're so busy with their work that they tend to, forget that actually they should also impart experiences, not just focus on knowledge, but you need to impart experiences because through the experience, then they're actually acquiring knowledge. And these are real knowledge, real life experiences they are learning. Hariom, would you like to add on?
I think Susila ji has mentioned very beautiful panorama of possibilities that people can participate in. And I think once again, age is not at all a factor. People should participate in various activities they can to contribute in their own ways. And doing external activities at a certain periodicity I think is a must. It is a necessary part of our Hindu way of life to take care of our other members in the community. But that said, I want to add one more facet here, which is that if coming back to chapter 3 of the Gita, right? And because there is really a lot of wealth of knowledge there. One of the perspectives is seva is, as far as the attitude of the mind is right, any action becomes seva. I can be in the middle of my day-to-day work and profession. I can be taking care of my parents at home. I can be taking care of my children at home, or whatever activity it might be. It does not have to be to someone who is needy outside. It is actually an attitude or a frame shift of thought process inside. And the seva then, to me, the way I think about it is, when that egocentricness is not there, then activity becomes seva. So when I do my work in the corporate life, which is in the midst of all the politics and the heat and everything, if I continue to do that with a spirit of detachment, without my egocentric desire, I mean, this is the theoretical knowledge, right? And if I do that in that particular way, that activity becomes seva. So to me, as a spiritual seeker, my journey is, I want to get to a point where my egocentric thrust in my professional activity is slightly reduced, that I can look at my professional activity itself as seva. I don't have to go somewhere outside and do it. It's good to, yes, you need to serve outside, and that's where the help needs to be given, but charity starts from home. You're doing so much of your time day to day. Can we transform that itself into seva? And I think, really speaking, if our professional work becomes that way, our professional work directly will become an opportunity to serve other people.
Yes.
We have other colleagues, we have other members. You may have a janitor in your office, or you may have a boss. You know, there are various professional relationships, maybe up or down, but each of them are an opportunity for us to serve. So I think seva can happen right next to us in the immediate surrounding, because everybody is seeking love, everybody is seeking connection, and every opportunity like that is an opportunity for service. So this can happen externally and even internally, and perhaps internally much more easily, because we are surrounded by those opportunities in day-to-day life.
Right. So in other words, you're saying that, doing things at home, which is actually part of a dharmic duty, can be also seen as a seva. So you begin cultivating that habit, which will then make the dharmic duties to be seen as less, less strenuous in that sense. And then that would develop a stronger passion and stronger love, which you can then, transmit to the rest of them as you engage in the various activities. And especially in today's context, so for the examples that you have mentioned, it suggests that a lot of these activities are physical, but in today's world, things are getting digital. How do we then remain, how can seva remain current and relevant? This is a bit more futuristic question.
Actually, in fact, the current situation, I took a step back and realized that there were a lot of positive things that happened in the circuit breaker. Many people spoke about the inability to go out, to interact, to actually, I can't go out, I can't see my friend, I can't this, I can't that, I can't go to the temple. But the CB actually brought about a beautiful thing. And I read this cute phrase that did its rounds in Facebook and WhatsApp. This is the coronavirus telling Krishna, hey, look, Krishna, I have closed your temple. And then Krishna laughs back and says, oh, you COVID, I brought the temple to everyone's home. People, this is exactly what happened. See, we set up Skype Pratana, and we actually did step by step to guide seniors who are in our group to how to set up the Skype, how to get onto it. And we conducted group prarthanas every 3-4 times a week. So we got around doing it, and we did a big project with the care packs for migrant workers. Went to give up to all these migrant workers who are being discharged from hospital. Must thank all the generous hearts in Singapore who donated towards this awesome cause that HEB Seva Group started. So this, there is always a way out, when you want to do seva, right? Nothing is a stumbling block. There is a way out everywhere. Whether it's a digital era or, when there was no communication other than actual messengers. If you talked about centuries ago, there was no post, there was no phone call. People had to literally go and pass messages. Seva happened then. Then we had the telephone, telegraph, telefax, tele whatever. Seva still happened. Now we are telecommuting. We are online. Seva will still happen. It will never end.
Right. Hariom?
I think just building on to what Susila ji mentioned, I think more than ever before, Seva has just become easier because now it can go outside your regular restrictions of your community. It can go far beyond to different countries. It transcends time zones. So I mean, very interestingly, I'm a class coordinator for one of the youth classes in Chinmaya Mission. And we used to have we have class once every week, and we used to do it at the Chinmaya Mission Center in Sarapa. And so we always used to have some members coming, going, etc. But now since the circuit breaker has been happening and we are doing it from home, the attendance has spiked to almost twice the number of people. Because you now suddenly see that people are not encumbered by traveling and so on and so forth. It becomes much easier for people. In fact, there are people joining from India and so on and so forth. So it's very interesting because now this has actually helped us to dissolve boundaries and to widen much more than what we could have achieved. So I think it's completely fine. Physical work still needs to happen. There are people who are, like, for example, there are so many groups and participants. I was very closely in touch with a group in Maharashtra. They are actually serving in the extremely downtrodden community and giving them food. So because the food supply chains have been disrupted, some of the places are not able to get food, or the prices of the food have skyrocketed. So you still need to have some people who are in the ground and who are really helping, and hats off to them. I mean, likewise, so many people have right now been doing Seva. The real heroes of our Seva are our doctors and so many people who are really at the forefront of this entire thing, or the people who are, taking us and transporting around. So there is always some part of physical Seva that will have to happen. But that said, if you're unable to find ways and means to contribute to physical Seva, we will be able to find opportunities for online Seva, either it be through passing on information and knowledge, or being in spiritual circle and spiritual community, like the very beautiful initiative that Susila was mentioning about. So I think these opportunities will always be there, and perhaps even increased more than ever before.
Right. So at this stage, we would like to just take quickly at some comments. Leela Bala has said that this is a very interesting discussion. Thank you, Leela, for your comment. Ted Aravindan has said, great story to share with my kids as well, Sushila. Oh, I think he's referring to the Mahabharata story that you mentioned. Vish Upadhyaya has also said good advice on Seva, and he mentioned the ego will get bruised. Well said. Okay, we have Vallavar Satvik Kitchen has commented via Facebook, YouTube. She said that Sushila is directed at you, that the speech was awesome. Hiran Pandya has mentioned that Dr. Hariom, stay blessed. So thank you so much for all your comments. And I think we are almost hitting an hour. I think I have to thank our speakers for spending their valuable time with us. I think today, to really summarize, you shared a lot about Seva itself. Seva is a selfless action, and through Seva, one develops empathy, one develops perspective taking, one also broadens the skill sets that you may have, and you can transfer those skills to your professional worlds, and from professional worlds, the skill sets you can also transfer it to your community work. And community service will not be stifled regardless of any situation. I think that is also another beautiful point. There's always a means. It's just whether there's a will. And then the other point that you also mentioned about the value of Seva is that it leads us to the pathway towards moksha. That's to reduce our unpleasant experiences, sufferings, and move on and get a better life in the next birth if you have not reached the moksha stage, if not moksha itself. And that's also a beautiful thing. And I think, in short, Seva is definitely a way of serving the divine. It helps you to see the divine in everybody, and in that way, it strengthens your spirituality. It transforms you as a person, allows you to look inwards and refine your qualities so that you can become a better person. So these are key points. Would you like to add on any other points that I've missed out?
I think I just want to have like a 5-liner,
Sure.
an analogy as to what Seva does to yourself. Imagine a glass of water that is contaminated with some black liquid. I'd love to call it coffee, but there are many people who love coffee, so won't do that.
I have it right here.
Black liquid in there, right? That is us, okay, with all our karmic baggage, with all our ego, with this big I, me, my inside you. What Seva is like pure water, divine water from the Ganges. Keep pouring it into this black glass, in this glass of black water, to the extent that there will come a point when all this black will overflow and come out. What you will be left with is purity. That's what Seva does to your soul.
I think it's a beautiful analogy. To summarize, basically Seva. That's amazing.
Yes.
I'm going to use that next time. Hariom, final words from you?
No, I think that is very beautiful. I think that is exactly the spirit at which we should be doing Seva. And I think just my final perspective would be that Seva is for our growth and our unfoldment and our transformation. And we need it much more than the other person that we are going to give Seva to.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I think viewers, if you want to really render your service for the community, you can feel free to approach any one of them, Ms Susila Ganesan and Hariom, through the various means. Hariom, would you like to share how can they contact you through Chinmaya Seva Centre?
Yeah, so I can possibly give my email contact or my phone number to you, and then you can pass it to whoever.
Sure. If not, you can also like Chinmaya Seva Centre page and also.
Oh yes. So we have a Chinmaya Seva Centre web page. So if you just Google Chinmaya Mission Singapore, you should find all the various activities that are going on at various platforms, so they can be a part of that.
Sure, definitely. And Ms. Susila, how can one contact you?
Ready to receive with open arms. Come join us in Seva. Youth especially come. You may have a very busy schedule at school, but this will give you a very good break. Do contact the Hindu Endowment Board, and you can call them and tell them that you'd like to be in Seva with the Community Seva Committee, or you can drop them an email. They will definitely put you in touch with us. The more the merrier. We can take everyone into our Seva group.
All right. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Susila. Thank you so much, Mr. Hariom, for joining us. I think it was a great discussion. Thank you, viewers, for joining us as well. See you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Have a pleasant evening.